Rawls's original position argument and intuitive argument were introduced and explained in depth in this week's lecture video. In evaluating whether Rawls's arguments work, several pieces of information must be elaborated upon. Thinking through political questions is often difficult due to the differences in interests that individuals promote. The solution to this is a thought experiment that imagines that what policies people would support if their judgment wasn't tainted by their personal preferences. The outcome would be much more fair, in my opinion. Under this veil of ignorance, utilitarianism would allow the majority to possibly have a negative impact on that of the minority. It isn't the best foundation for individual protections. Utilitarianism would be rejected. Feudalism does not have any social mobility. People are born into their future and do not have the opportunity to be promoted. Behind the veil of ignorance, this would not be approved either, because we could possibly be the successful king or the malnourished peasant. Libertarianism does have social mobility, but it is not guaranteed, and could possibly even be extremely difficult depending on where they would be under the veil of ignorance. Strict egalitarianism would provide that everyone has the same amount of wealth and the same amount of income, regardless of contribution. But this would also not be supported if the people under the veil of ignorance considered that they could have more than what was allowed, if not under strict egalitarianism. To those that could contribute more to the economy, this would be a hindrance. Inequality is fine as long as all would have more than they would under strict egalitarianism. Under this veil of ignorance, what would be endorsed would be the property-owning democracy, which has two principles of justice. The second is broken down into two different parts. The liberty principle guarantees that the most expansive system of basic liberties, compatible with a similar system for all. This enables people to pursue what they believe would lead to a good life as long as they don't negatively interfere with others. The first part of the second principle, the equal opportunity principle, ensures offices are to be equally open to everyone, meaning that non-discrimination laws, access to basic nutrition, access to basic medical care, and access to quality education would be required. These would be required so that no one would have an unfair advantage. The second part, the difference principle, says that inequalities in wealth are acceptable only when they work to the benefit of the least well-off, meaning that it's okay for some to be rich while others are not, as long as the inequality somehow benefits the least fortunate. I believe that the original position argument would obviously bring about the most favorable outcome. Next is the intuitive argument, or as Sandel calls it, the argument for moral arbitrariness. The point is that most of us think that success should be a function of choice and effort, not genetic lottery or historical accident. A lot of factors affect our ability to succeed in the market of which we have no control of, therefore deserve no credit. If we are born with a silver spoon in our mouth, abandoned at an orphanage, or inherited various positive traits or mental handicaps, this makes it difficult for those who were not born into the best circumstances or with the best genetics. A feudal society would not be acceptable because the family you were born into would essentially determine your worth and capabilities. Libertarianism is more fair than the feudal society because social mobility is possible, but it still makes it very difficult to succeed for those who are in need of help. Under a meritocracy, we do things that offset the influence of historical and genetic accident. We would do a lot of things that the equal opportunity principle requires, so that success would not be dependent on disadvantages or advantages, but does not include the difference principle of a property-owning democracy. Therefore, the property-owning democracy is superior and would indeed allow for the best society. Lastly, in applying Rawls's original position argument to a political issue, I chose to discuss the political issue of healthcare when placed under a veil of ignorance. One party is in favor of increasing the cost of healthcare for all due to the retirement of baby boomers and their increasing need for healthcare that is covered under Medicare. The other party doesn't want to anger the country by increasing the cost of healthcare as drastically, but believe that adding to the country's debt is inevitable. Independent of what I believe over the issue, under the veil of ignorance, the decision would be made to postpone increases in the cost of healthcare, because essentially they would be unaware of their stance in the economy and of their health. They would consider possibly having a disease from birth that required expensive medical visits, or having a family member with a terminal illness that would leave behind unbearable amounts of debt.